Hi, today I am going to talk about Supergirl. Um I'm not usually like a movie review channel, and I don't want to be that, but um I have thoughts on it. I saw it, and I have thoughts on it that are, I don't know, maybe slightly different than what most, if not all, of the critique is. First off, I want to address this sort of aspect of it that's like the political aspect. It really sucks that in this day and age, just the existence of a movie is a political thing, or just the act of going to see a movie is a political statement. And it really shouldn't be, but society has dubbed it so. And for better or worse, I'm not immune to that. I wanted to see this movie, one, because I really enjoyed the Superman movie. Legitimately loved that movie, and I don't like Superman as a character most of the time in comics. And I didn't like the Snyder Man of Steel stuff. I always thought Cavill was kind of a good, he was a good Superman. He was a good God among men Superman, but the idea of the God among men Superman has never been my favorite one. Likewise, my favorite version of like the Trinity, like for instance, like sometimes they're written in this sort of Marvel esque kind of, they're real people living real lives, and sometimes they're written as these gods, like the Holy Trinity, in a way where these people are beyond humanity. I think the character of Superman is best when he's Clark more than he's Superman, and that doesn't mean that he's not in the suit. Um, I think the idea that, what was it, the Tarantino thing where he says Clark is the mask and Superman is the real man. Like, he has it so fucking wrong. I can't begin to fathom. Like, what what were you reading? How did you get that? Batman, on the other hand, Batman is 100% the real man, and Bruce is the mask. Superman is the exact opposite. Superman is Clark before he's Superman. Superman is just Clark wearing a suit and trying to keep people from knowing that he's Clark, but he is 100% Clark. The farm boy, good. The farm boy is the reason Superman's good. But this isn't a video about Superman. But David Cornsweet perfectly encapsulated the farm boy, good boy Clark putting on a suit to save people. Just to round out that point, my favorite Wonder Woman is like the barbarian queen Wonder Woman. If she's not holding a sword and shield, then I don't care. So this Supergirl, there was a lot of people who hated this movie before it existed. They hated the fact that this movie existed. They hated the David Cornsweet version. These are like your anti woke rage bait right wing kind of people who have made it their mission, and they've made it their financial, you know stability is contingent on not only them raging against the movie, but turning people against this stuff. So, like I said, before I digress, I'm not immune to this stuff. Part of the reason I was so adamant in going to see this movie opening weekend, because I wanted to stick it to the chuds, and I wanted to vote with my wallet. I want to see more of this James Gunn DC universe, and I want this movie to do well. So, you know, the people who were hating on this thing before it even existed, the people that were making fun of the way Millie Alcock looks, even though these incel bastards would be like shitting themselves to be walking arm in arm with a woman that looked like her, for whatever. So I'm not immune to that, and unfortunately, that's the society we live in. These movies are political. To go see this movie is a political statement, whether you fucking want it to be or not. I hate that, but that's just the way it is. You can be like, why am I talking politics? If you read my book, you know my book is nothing if not a political statement against Christian nationalism and evangelical hypocrisy. It's literally like a cross between The Witcher and Red State. Um, there's a little Brother Bear mixed in. If you catch that, that's cool. Part of the reason I wanted to see this movie was specifically to stick it to the chuds, to help give it the opening weekend it deserves. If I could have, I would have taken a group of 5 or 6 people with me, and if I needed to, I would have bought their tickets. I did that for Serenity, by the way. Long story short, I paid for at least 10 tickets to the movie Serenity. And I didn't even know what that was before I saw it. I went and saw it blind, having never seen Firefly. Loved it so much. I went back to my apartment with all my roommates and roommates' girlfriends and friend group and everything, and I was like, we're going to see this movie. And people were like, I'm broke, I don't have money. And I was like, fuck it, I will pay. We're going to see this movie. So I ended up not paying for everybody's tickets. People were like able to buy their own ticket, but for people who couldn't or whatever reason, like I literally bought somewhere up, and I saw the movie like 3 times on my own after that too. I loved that movie so much. So Joss Whedon, I am responsible for at least 10 tickets, and I never saw Firefly. Definitely saw it after. This Supergirl movie, a lot of the criticism you're getting off of it is things like, the script issues, the deviations from the book that it's based on. I've heard some people say they think it spent too much time in Krypton, and I disagree with that, but for a different reason. The Krypton stuff was necessary, but I think it wasn't hard enough. In the book that it's based on, Woman of Tomorrow by Tom King and Bill Quisevely, they all go through hell on that little slice off asteroid snow globe thing of Krypton. So they cut off that little section of the city, fly up into the atmosphere or into orbit around Krypton. It takes years for that asteroid to get to where it's unlivable. And in the book, she bears witness to all the hell that the Kryptons go through on that little rock. There's like a sickness that comes from kryptonite being unearthed, and it's like this incurable cancer, and they try all these different things in the time that she's on the asteroid to try to solve the problem. And there's scenes where she's like, I think she's digging or she's like hammering spikes for a chain or something, and her hands are literally bleeding from the work she does. Like, I've only read the book once, and I only read it like a few months ago, so I'm not 100% sure, but like, the idea is on Krypton, she goes through hell. So she ends up burying dead people. She works her fingers to the bone to help try to solve the problem. She is active in trying to keep the refugees safe, and she's watching all her friends and family get taken out by this poison in the soil and all this stuff, and she is mentally put through absolute hell as a refugee of Kryptonian refugee on this little asteroid. Whereas in the movie, she is like daddy's, sorry to say it in a really nasty way, but like she's just like a rich girl. Her father is like one of the most important men on the asteroid. So she seems, and maybe she's not, but they don't show it in the movie, she's essentially shielded from all of the bad on the asteroid. She hears about it, and she witnessed her mom and her dad get sick. But in the book, she's down there in the dirt, in the grit. She's getting her hands very dirty trying to help solve the problems. It's an all hands on deck survival situation in the book, and in the movie you never get the idea that she has to go through anything. That she seems like she's just kind of locked away in the mansion or the palace or wherever they live, and she's sort of shielded from the worst of it until her family starts to succumb. So then when she gets sent off, she's sent off to a place that she doesn't know. She's left everything she's ever known. Her planet is dead, and you feel that, and that would be enough. But against the book, you see that she is in the book. You see why she is so hardened from her experiences on Krypton, because not only did she lose her planet and everything that she did in the movie, she also spent years in the thick of it, on the front line trying to solve these problems and failing, and burying the dead, and working her hands to the bones, and pushing herself mentally to the brink before she gets shipped off by her dad. So she lands on Earth, devastated and emotionally broken and all this stuff. And I think they're trying to characterize Kara in this movie the same way they tried to characterize Kara in the book, without the Kara in the movie having gone through the same things that Kara in the book did. So when I say that the Krypton stuff is the problem, I've heard people say that they think the Krypton stuff was too long or took too much of the movie. I think the problem with the Krypton stuff is it wasn't hard enough. It wasn't dark enough. She didn't go through enough on Krypton. That's not to say that the stuff on Krypton was not good. If I hadn't read the book, maybe I would have felt it a little bit stronger. But I love the way she found Crypto as just like this little trash diving mutt covered in filth, and she's just like, "You're my buddy now," and they're the only survivors off Krypton. I like that. I understand, and it gives you real stakes beyond the whole "my dog is dying" thing. It's not only the dog is dying; it's that this dog is literally her last connection to her planet. Besides Clark, Clark never lived on that planet, so he's not really there. So you feel the stakes in Crypto's death a lot stronger, or you would feel the stakes in Crypto's death a lot stronger had she gone through the hell on the Kryptonite asteroid that, in the movie, as much as she did in the book. And I don't know if there were talks about doing that, or if they just didn't have the balls to do that at the end of the day. Maybe they just didn't feel, maybe they didn't want to go that dark. But this movie gets dark. This movie deals with sex trafficking. This movie deals with genocide. This movie goes really dark. Murder. Sorry, murder that is wanton. This is sort of cold-blooded murder that is unprovoked and unjustified in any way. This movie goes to very dark places, but for whatever reason, it didn't want to go that dark with Kara. It is one of those baffling situations. So I think one of the big issues was the Kryptonian stuff didn't hit hard enough, as opposed to there was too much of it. I think if they would have took the exact same kind of screen time and hit you harder with how devastating the moments on that little floating island was, maybe you would feel even more. It would have recontextualized the character even more. So her abrasiveness, her aloofness, her wanting to constantly drink her feelings away, all that stuff would have been even more understandable in the movie. And I'm going to be kind of rude about it. She feels like like daddy's little rich girl while LA was burning. She was sent out of Beverly Hills, like, but having never had to deal with any of the bad that everyone around her was dealing with. So it honestly feels like she didn't go through nearly enough to justify how devastated she is. Um, and I've heard, and there's other issues. I'm gonna move on from the Krypton stuff. Krem, I think the changes to Krem from him being like this sort of evil Errol Flynn to this inhuman, not inhuman, this sort of like body modification to the point of beyond any sort of appeal. Like this guy has got like the pirate beads all throughout his face, scars all over his body, this scraggly, horrible haircut, uh, like a grill, like metal teeth grill. Like they dehumanize this character to the point where there's nothing there's there's nothing to rehabilitate in this man. Like this man is just vile. He has a sort of weird charisma in the sense that he kind of walks into the room, has a really thick accent, so you can't really understand him very well. And every room he walks into, there's like a running gag where he just like helps himself to whatever food is around. And it's like a power move. It's like the whole Sam Jackson, that is a tasty beverage kind of thing. And that's kind of like the only little bit of charisma the guy has. He sort of kills people with a shrug, so he's just like, whatever. So he's so nonchalant about his violence, and he's so unappealing visually that it's easy to want him dead. There's no redemptive qualities to this character whatsoever. And he is so vile and so morally bankrupt that you have no problem wanting him dead. And I think they did that because they were probably worried that they didn't want like a charismatic villain to take the spotlight from Kara. I don't know if they they didn't have confidence in Millie and the character of Supergirl to hold her own movie. It feels like they didn't have the confidence that Kara could hold her own in this movie. And they were worried that if they made the bad guy this sort of suave, evil Errol Flynn type character, that he would probably take the spotlight and steal every scene he's in. So it feels like they just didn't have the confidence to put a charismatic villain. And that's fine. You don't need to have a charismatic villain. You can have a just detestable villain that has no redemptive qualities. Like not every villain needs to be Thanos, where you're kind of like, is he maybe right? No, like the best example I've seen where they do this is in the Puss in Boots movie. They have Death, who is the villain that is justified in his indignation and his desire to stick it to the hero of the movie. He's justified because the hero's flaw is he's been squandering his lives, and Death is upset about that. But then on the opposite side of that, you have Jack Horner, who is comedically just vile. Like there is no redemptive qualities in this character whatsoever, and the whole point of him is so there is a villain that you can absolutely hate and want to hate and want to see go down, and you're not like, oh wait, is he right? Maybe no. You need like if you're gonna have a villain like that, it's probably good to have a villain that is the opposite side. So I think Puss in Boots is like the perfect example of that. But this movie, the villain is first off, Krem in the book is not part of the Brigands. He is not a space pirate. He is this sort of royal guard who's gone rogue and who joins up with the Brigands. An incredible, like he doesn't have the strength of Kara in the movie. He's basically on par with Kara. Like for some reason, he has just as much strength and power as Kara, or maybe just a little bit less. But Kara is constantly put in situations where she is nerfed, either through poison or like the sun around her or whatever. So I think the reason they did that with Krem is they didn't want to have, they were scared that a charismatic villain would take the spotlight away from Supergirl, and I also think that's why they didn't give you enough of Jason Momoa as Lobo. I think they were worried if they gave you too much Lobo, you would want it to be Lobo's movie, and every time Lobo was on frame, he would be the only thing you're looking at, and every time he wasn't on frame, you would be like, "Where's Lobo?" So like the problem with, I think as written, Lobo doesn't fit in this movie whatsoever, and I'm so glad Jason Momoa got to play Lobo because I remember, I keep saying Lobo sounds so weird to say, but like years ago when he was cast as Aquaman, I was like, well, shit, they just wasted Jason Momoa on Aquaman. He should be Lobo. And I've been saying that for a decade or whatever, and I'm glad they were able to give him another chance because this is the part he's born to play. Just like Ryan Reynolds was born to play Deadpool, you know, Jason Momoa is born to play this character. This is the only character I think that he should ever be in these movies. And they need to, if they keep going with this DC thing, they need to figure out ways to contrive reasons for Lobo to keep being in these movies because he's a fan favorite. But they need to make sure that they treat him like salt, like a little dash of salt instead of the whole thing. Though I do think it would be fun to have a movie that where Lobo and Ruthie, the little girl in the movie, Lobo and Ruthie have pretty good chemistry. So it would have been so like I think you had two choices in this movie. You can either take Lobo out completely, which they really didn't want to do because they had a chance to make him and they wanted to put him in this movie, or you put more of him in there and then you have this weird sort of trio of Kara, Lobo, and Ruthie going after Krem. And for God knows whatever reason, they decided that Lobo wasn't after Krem as well. He was just after one of his like right hand man. For whatever reason, Lobo should have also been after Krem. And I think there's this thing where like Ruthie wanted to kill Krem. Kara should have been like, "I'm not gonna let you kill Krem. We're gonna bring him to justice." Lobo should have been like wanting to kill Krem. So like this weird little thing should have been like Kara and Lobo should have been the angel and the devil on Ruthie's shoulders. But that's not what they wrote. For whatever reason, Lobo is just this weird sort of chaos character in the background of the movie that kind of shows up, does a little something here and there, but doesn't really add anything or take anything away from the movie. The movie would work exactly the same without him in it. And I think that's a shame. I think he could have got away with using him more and making the movie better for it. And I wish they just would have trusted Millie and Kara and Supergirl to hold their own against better, not better, like better versions of the characters that she was against. Because as a whole, I want to say this. I'm throwing criticisms out, but I've been listening to other people talk about it because I've been having trouble reconciling my feelings with the movie. Because here's the thing: when I finished this movie, like I was in a mostly packed theater, and when the credits rolled, people clapped. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. While I was on the ride, I was having a good time. Like for the most part, I was able to turn off the little analytical writer brain in me and just sit down and enjoy the movie. But I know that I have a habit of doing that. Sometimes I get so excited to see something that I turn off the analytical thing and I'm just like, "That was great." And it actually probably wasn't great. I did the same thing with the Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness or whatever it was called a few years ago. I thoroughly enjoyed that movie. I thought it was a blast because I'm a Sam Raimi fan. So all I could I was just grinning ear to ear throughout the whole movie because I was just like, this is Evil Dead, this is Army of Darkness, this is Sam Raimi everywhere. But I didn't give a shit about any of the the MCU Doctor Strange shit. I was just, oh, is this a Doctor Strange movie? I don't care. I think this is just an awesome fucking movie, and it's kind of dumb and fun in the Army of Darkness kind of way, which is one of my favorite stupid films of all time. So like, I turned off my analytical brain, and then like, listen, you go to like these sort of MCU ranking lists, and everyone talks about how Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness is like one of the worst of the MCU movies. For my money, the absolute worst MCU movie is Thor: Love and Thunder, and there's like an ocean between that movie and the next worst movie. I fucking hate that movie with a blinding passion. So all the criticisms I've heard about this movie that don't fall into right wing rage bait is shit that I mostly agree with, even though I enjoyed the movie and I hope to see more of this character and the James Gunniverse of the DC kind of thing. I want to see more of that stuff. The other thing I want to kind of focus on with this movie is the theme. The theme of this movie, I think, is a perfect counter. I'm going to say counterbalance, and that doesn't mean it's an opposite or that it's like a foil to. Like, you have, like, it's a perfect counterweight. It evens out the level. So it is this perfect opposite end, or perfect leveling off of the theme of Superman 25. And in Superman 25, the theme was, or in a cynical world that is, where might makes right, where, cheaters win the day, where corruption pays off, where, stepping on throats to get yours is what gets you yours. In that world, in our world, essentially, is what that movie is actually saying. In our world, in a world like that, a kind act is an act of rebellion. In that movie, he says maybe that's the real punk rock, is being kind, being loving, not taking the easy way, not breaking the neck, figuring out a way not to break the neck. And in this movie, it's Supergirl. Her mother's on her deathbed in the flashback, and her mom says to her, the most important thing, the most important thing is to be good. He says, you have to be good, Kara. That doesn't mean you have to be nice. That doesn't mean you have to be kind. And it doesn't mean you have to be weak. But you do have to be good. And I think that is this sort of perfect addition thematically to the Superman's real punk rock thing. Because, and every time David Cornsweet shows up in the movie, and he shows up like a few times, he kind of adds to that theme because he's like, he shows her the suit and he says, I know it looks a little silly, but it's just so people know that we're good. So he uses the word good specifically, because that's the point. She is good, but she's not him. She's not her cousin. She's not Superman. She's good, but she's willing to kill. She's good, but she's not nice. She's good, but she is abrasive, and she's, she goes off on benders. She's good, but she, cusses. Whatever. She's not Superman. And that's awesome. She doesn't have to be, and she needs to be a different character, because I think some of the issues with Supergirl as a character is like she's basically just female Superman. If you already have Superman, why do you need Supergirl? So I think thematically, I resonated pretty strong with that because it came off of the back of Superman 25. So I think there's a lot of things about Supergirl that recontextualize. So I think if you see it as a sequel or an addition to this cinematic universe, I think it is a perfect next step in that universe. As a second movie within the same cinematic universe, I think it's kind of a perfect step, because it adds on to the story of Superman 25 in the sense that Crypto, like in Superman, Crypto gets captured, and Superman is like, I gotta go find the dog. He's scared. He's alone. He's not even a good dog, but I gotta go find him. And now that you have the context of who Crypto actually is in regards to Kara's relationship, it was more like not only was he going to save the dog for his own specific reasons, but he was like, that's Kara's dog, and she would be, and he's all she has left of Krypton, and she would be absolutely devastated if something happened to this dog. So like you can feel the emotion in Superman's desperation to save the dog. That bit is made so much more, that is given so much more weight through the existence of this movie. Is that a strength of this movie? I don't know. It makes Superman better in a lot of ways, but it also doesn't make itself any better. So it's this weird thing where it seems to be doing more work for Superman than it is for itself. So getting back to the thematics of it, I think the be good but not necessarily nice, be good but not necessarily weak, is something that's always resonated with me, because especially in my days when I was dealing with my depression and working in places that I hated, I was a very abrasive, kind of mean person. I sucked at dealing with customers. I wasn't nice to my coworkers. I just wanted to do my job and get home. And sometimes I could get pretty hard to work with, and I'm sorry for that. But there was never a part of me. I would never hurt anyone intentionally, is my point. It's like, so I think personally that be good but not necessarily nice thing resonated with me personally. There was something in that hit me where I live. And I think in society now, much like Superman 25, we needed to hear the real punk rock is being nice kind of message. I think in a way we kind of need to hear that being good doesn't necessarily mean being nice, because if you'll allow me to wax political here for a second, I don't think it's any surprise to anyone that I'm on the left of this political divide. But like, I think for a very long time, the right has kind of taken advantage of the niceness of the left, the tolerance of the left, the when they go low, we go high of the left. I think in this day and age, that's kind of going away. I think after 10 years of how long it's been after Trump, 10, 12 years of this political environment, we've kind of, for the most part, I have, people on the left are tired of trying to be the reasonable ones. They're tired of being the nice ones. They're tired of trying to go high in the face of people who seem to have absolutely no bottom whatsoever. So I think in a lot of ways this is a message that and just as I said, it evens out the balance. In a world that's cynical, being nice is an act of rebellion. But when you're dealing with just morally reprehensible people, you don't have to be nice about it. But you do have to be good. You have to be working for what you think is good. And I can definitely see someone on the opposite side of the aisle thinking that they're doing the good thing by, going around just shitting on pride parades and burning pride flags and protesting gay funerals and stuff, thinking that they're being good by being assholes. And that's not what this is. Because in the broader sense, like the whole point, like the political climate this movie exists in, and the movie itself is entangled in, is part of it. Because like there's rage baiters out there, like the right wing kind of anti woke media personalities who wanted this movie to fail and who were shitting on this movie before it existed. And so you can't take a message from that movie and apply it to those people. Obviously, this movie's not talking to those people. So the message of be good, do good, but that doesn't necessarily mean be nice or be kind or be weak. I think that message is aimed squarely at the people who this movie is aimed for. And I think this movie, it doesn't have a lot of like girl boss moments. It doesn't have a lot of like there's a lot of moments where like where women are being badass, but they don't hang a lantern on it the way like the MCU did at the end of Endgame when like the big girl boss scene where like every female MCU character came together and did a thing. And that was fine, but it was so contrived that it felt like I recently watched Endgame again like a couple weeks ago, and it and as much as I'm not one of those people that has a problem with it, that felt like such a cheesy, contrived moment compared to the one that happened in Infinity War when Scarlet Witch, the Night Guerrera, and Black Widow took out that alien lady in in Infinity War. Those three women taking on that one alien lady. That scene, I think, hit even harder as like an authentic girl boss moment than the 30 female characters moment in Endgame. But that's a different story. I don't think this movie has any of that, but it will still be called woke. Um, I don't think this movie has any of that like contrived wokeness, but it will still be called that. I think all the moments that women that feminists or whatever could take pride in as like awesome female hero moments, I think they are 100% earned. Like there's no like none of the men are made to look stupid specifically because they're men. There's not a bunch of moments where men are undercut for the sake of the women. When the women are badass, they're just badass, and the men I think are just as badass as their stories will allow them to be. Like there's a moment where the girl Ruthie takes out one of the guards, and Lobo is they're all locked in prison at the time, and Lobo's just kind of watching it, and he's so into it because he's just like, oh, this little girl's badass. But there's no but they don't make Lobo look bad for the sake of making Ruthie look cool. And I think that's kind of what I'm getting at. But they will still call this movie woke. And I don't think that's fair. Though the main bad guys are hauling a group of women to be sold off as sex slaves. And she saves all those women. And so like there are feminist messages and there are definitely woke messages, but it's not hitting you over the head with those messages the way the right wing people will have you think it is. The only other thing I'll touch on, and I'm kind of I'm mixed on it because I've heard people say they have a problem with it, but I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with the fact that Kara killed Krem at the end. First off, they made Krem so inhuman and so reprehensible and unsympathetic and unredemptive and all that stuff that he had to die. This man was the leader of a sex trafficking ring. He had to fucking die. I like that she spared Ruthie from having to sully her soul on his murder, but he had to die. I do think it should have been Lobo who killed him. I think you could have got away with Krim dying at the end and Lobo being the one who did the deed or something to keep Kara from having to kill him. Because, I mean, there's this weird kind of aspect of it where years ago we got mad that Clark broke Zod's neck, and I did too. I had a real problem with that. But then, like in this Superman 25, he's going out of his way to save fucking squirrels, and he's bummed when the big kaiju monster gets killed in the process. In that kind of universe, having Kara just straight up cut Krim's throat is like, I'm not sure about it. I don't have as much a problem with it as I would have Superman breaking Zod's neck, but I do have an issue with her killing him. I think they could have got around that with Lobo. And for the life of me, I don't understand why they didn't. Even in the book it's based on, you find out that they didn't kill Krim. Like, they lead you to believe they did because the narration of the book is like the framing device is the narration of the book is Ruthie's novel she wrote about her time with Supergirl, and she lies to the public with her in her novel that Supergirl killed Krim, but in the book, but in real life, or in reality, she just locked him in the Phantom Zone for like 100 years, and he actually comes out rehabilitated, deeply remorseful for his actions, begging forgiveness, a changed man. But like this movie, straight up, she just walks up, she's like, "This is for my dog," grabs the antidote, stabs him in the gut, and wounds him, and then she goes, "And this is for what you did to that little girl's family," and then she just kills the guy. And I can get behind that as a it didn't feel like it broke the character for me. It didn't feel like it was out of the realm of possibility of something Kara would do. I think it would have felt more so if we would have saw the hell that Kara had to go through on Krypton, to go back to my other point. But I don't think it negates Kara as a character. I don't think it breaks that character the way I thought it broke Henry Cavill's Superman. The last thing, and I know I said that was the last thing, the very last thing I'll touch on is at the end. And I've seen some people say that they think that there's too much Clark in this movie, and I think there's just enough Clark. I think you need just a little bit, just enough to show that he's a presence in the world. And I didn't even have a problem when Ruthie's asking about Clark to Kara, because she's laying out the differences between him and her. So I don't really have a problem with that. But she is talking to him at the end of the movie. The end of the movie, she goes home, and she's hanging out in Clark's. She's in Clark's apartment. He comes home after flying around doing his Superman thing, and she's already in the apartment, and Crypto's just making a mess of everything. She's like, "I'm home. I'm gonna stay home," or whatever. What I know you don't need the movie to be this, right? This is where the movie should end, or this is where that scene should end. But I personally could have sat through 10 minutes of those two talking about the shit they went through. I think at this point, if you keep going, I think these two characters have a lot more in common now than they did before. Kara thinks that Clark hasn't gone through any trauma, but she doesn't know the hell he's gone through with Lex in this last movie. Or maybe she does. But like, Superman was tortured, and he was forced to watch a man get gunned down in front of him while he was powerless to stop it. That's gonna fuck with your head, and that's trauma. That's trauma that Clark has gone through. I think that there is a real chance for these two characters, and this is just like headcanon shit, but like, these two characters can now commiserate in a very real way with the shit that Kara has been through on top, and now that if she sits down and Clark tells her the shit he's been through, I think they can then connect as people who have gone through real, true, honest to God trauma. Um, Now, I think she could find a way to respect him now if she tries to. But like I said, that's my headcanon. And like I said, I could have, and I don't think the movie needed this, but I honestly could have sat through a 10-minute scene of those two just talking out their shit. Um, because that's one of my favorite things about this Superman. I actually like this Superman more when he's just talking than when he's flying around. Like, David Cornsweet just standing in the suit, just being Clark, actually does a lot. Works for me in a really big way. And I like Kara too. So I hope they are able to keep going off of this. I don't think this was a failure in any way, but unfortunately, in this climate, and these people, these guys that are just like wolves, just circling, waiting for any drop of blood, sharks in the water. Like, the fact that this movie is not a home run, the best comic book movie you've ever seen, is enough to say that it's the worst comic book movie ever made. And I don't think that's fair, but that is what she's gonna have. That is what Supergirl is gonna have to deal with. So these are my thoughts. I'm not a YouTuber. I'm just a guy sitting talking into a camera. So I do want to sort of give a little preview of something a little project I want to do with the upcoming YouTube videos. I know my oh so creative title of these things is talking about making comics, TAMC, but I want to, if I can, take the next few videos I make and do sort of like movie pitches, kind of concept ideas that are things that I am noticing about the animation and movie industry as someone with an associate's and a bachelor's in animation. There's some stuff I want to see going forward that we're not gonna see, and I want to kind of maybe just I want to take the next few videos, if I can find the time to do it, to maybe throw together some movie pitches of what I would like to see coming from places like Disney. I am absolutely, utterly just loathed every time I see another live action remake of a magical animated movie. I saw the trailer to Moana and my eyes glazed over. It looks. I don't care. Like, why would you do that? Make more Moana if you want to make more Moana, but don't make this. Anyway, yeah, I just that's something I want to do going forward. There's a few ideas that I have that I'm gonna try to kind of turn into just about to use that word, into some videos, and so it will probably be a little different than what I normally would do, which is just this sort of existential rambling into a camera. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you did, like, subscribe, all that crap. Bye.